Hello beautiful, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Hailey Nicole and this is episode 2 of my eating disorder recovery series. So if you missed the first video, I will link it up above, and if you haven't seen my original eating disorder story and you're just now stumbling upon my channel, I will also link that above for you to kind of catch up on who I am, what is my story. But the topic of today's episode is how I stopped binge eating. Okay, so I was in the habit of kind of binging for, honestly, gosh, probably like a year and a half. I struggled with this. It kind of started before my eating disorder, developed an eating disorder, and then even after I was like, I felt recovered, I would still binge every now and then for like probably a year after. So I have binged my fair amount of meals. Honestly, I think most people do, but there's a difference in mindset. You have people who like normally would eat a lot and then be like, oh my gosh, I'm so full, like can't believe I ate that much Taco Bell. And then you have people that are like, I am intentionally going to eat as much as I physically can with the intention of exercising it off or purging my food or like whatever. I was option 2. So I think the best way to do this video is for me to just kind of break down step by step what I did to stop binging, because like I said, it took me a hot minute, and there was even times where I like felt recovered and I was like, I'm good, I haven't binged, haven't purged in 6 months, and then I would eat like 9 tacos and I was like, why? Like, why did I do this to myself? So I'm gonna give you guys real tips, like what I really did to get to the point now where I do not binge anymore. And I will say that I'm a foodie and I love food. So there are still days today where I may eat a little bit too much and I feel overly full, but I do not binge anymore. Okay, so one of the very first tips that really helped me was I would tell my boyfriend Alan. He knew about my situation. He knew I was trying to get through my eating disorder and he knew that I binged. So a lot of what we did was eat together, because if you're eating with someone else and they finish their food, like you've been eating for 10-15 minutes and like y'all have finished your plates of food, you're less likely to go get a second and a third and a fourth plate if you're with somebody else, because you're gonna be like, they're judging me. So honestly, that peer pressure could be kind of a good thing, because for me, if I was eating with Alan or with my family, I ate normal, I ate like them. And then when I was done, I was like, that felt really good, like my stomach feels good. So that's my first tip, is to eat with a friend or eat with somebody, or maybe even FaceTime somebody while you eat. That could probably work as well. Okay, so my second tip is to pre-portion your meals and then put the food away. So this is more for like if you're making a meal at home, if you're cooking your own meal. So instead of bringing out a container of beans, bringing out a container of chicken, bringing out a container of sweet potatoes, even if it's healthy food, if you have all the containers in front of you and you're kind of eating out of the containers, you're gonna eat a lot more. And then you're gonna get to the point where the containers are kind of half empty and then you're like, might as well finish it, right? Don't do that. I made that mistake so many times until I realized if I make a good sized plate of food, a plate of food that's gonna fill me up and I'm not gonna be hungry anymore. I'll also drink water before my meal. Make a good sized plate of food, good healthy food, and then put all the other food away, put it back in the refrigerator, back in the pantry, heat up my plate of food or cook my food, whatever, and I would have one plate and no other food out. I would sit down with my napkin and my fork and my water, and I would drink some water, I would eat my meal, and then I would be like, oh, that was good, I'm nice and full, I don't need to eat anything more. Even if I'm like craving like sugar or something, I don't need to eat anymore. So I would wash my plate and then I would go brush my teeth, because if I go brush my teeth, I'm less likely to like go back in the pantry and find something to snack on. So that is something I did that was like super helpful for me, and it decreased my risk of feeling the urge to binge. So this one's very simple and it sounds super easy, but it's not always easy. Eat healthy food. Like, I will just say this all day long, because one of the things I used to do, trigger warning, I used to get like the granola bars, like Nature Valley granola bars, and they tasted so good, but it was a lot of sugar, a lot of like simple carbohydrates. So when I ate it, it was not filling at all. So I could easily put down like 6 or 7 of those and feel full, like, okay, I've had a meal. But really it was like a lot of sugar, a lot of like unnecessary empty calories that I would end up like eating double later in the evening. So instead of eating junky snacks, I would eat healthy food, because if I ate like a full plate of like raw cucumbers and like tahini or hummus, I was genuinely full afterwards and I was like, I don't want any more cucumbers. So if you're eating healthy, you're less likely to want to keep eating it. Not that healthy food isn't good, but I mean, like, you're less likely to binge carrots than you are a Reese's, because there are literal food scientists behind commercial foods, behind candies, behind cereals, behind milks. that literally chemically engineer the foods to be addicting. So if you're trying to kind of break away from the fast food, if you're kind of trying to break away from the candy and the artificial sweeteners and the high fructose corn syrup, go to a whole foods plant-based diet and your cravings will start to decrease after a couple of weeks or a couple of months. At least that's how it was for me. And so yeah, I think that's all I had to say about that one. So in addition to eating healthy foods, have healthy snacks on hand. So I would always have nuts, pretty much was like my jam at this point in my life. I would always have like a Ziploc baggie of like almonds, walnuts, pecans, and maybe macadamia nuts mixed up in my backpack. And I would kind of eat that throughout the day as I was going through class. And this really helped me because here's where it was like super awesome for me. So in the last video, in the first episode, I mentioned a list. It's like 1 through 10. And number 1 is like a ravenous hungry and 10 is like you're so full. So for most people who have an eating disorder, who are like in a binging purging cycle like I was, you go maybe a day or a meal without eating, however long you go, and then you're hungry. You're like a 1 or a 2 on this scale, and you're just like, I have to eat. And then because you're so hungry, your animal brain is like, let's go. And then you eat until you're like a 9 or a 10, and then you're like, oh my God, I'm so full. Like, why did I do this to myself? I'm not gonna eat until whenever. And then you go back down to like a 2, and then you go back up to like a 9 or a 10. And you kind of repeat this cycle of like going up and down the scale like crazy. It's just so unhealthy, and it's so unhealthy for your brain. It's so unhealthy for your gut, and it's so unhealthy for your body. So the filler snacks like nuts or veggies or cucumbers or carrots or any type of like healthy snack, whether it's a vegetable, a fruit, a nut, a seed, something like that, that's a real like whole food, that kind of keeps you within like the 4 to 6 range on this scale. So if you're kind of hungry at like a 3 or a 4, you'll probably eat to like a 6 or a 7. And that's like a healthy range rather than being like starving or like bursting full. So that really helped me, was like having snacks and staying within the like 4 to 6 hunger range. Okay, this one is like super unique to me. I've never heard this tip anywhere else. I had a code word, and so it was peaches. So I told Alan, because we were like super close, and we still are obviously, but like at this time in my life, it was kind of perfect that he was there because we were like best friends, super, super close, and we'd been dating for like 8 months at the time. So it was really easy for me to be like, hey, I need help. So our code word was peaches, and what it meant was I'm wanting to binge, or I'm thinking about binging, and I need you to like distract me. So I would literally text him and be like, peaches, and he would call me and be like, what's up, baby? Like, what are you doing? Like, let's go hang out. Let's watch a movie. Like, let's hammock. I have soccer practice. Want to come watch? Like, he did his best to literally distract me, because if I was like in my room alone watching Netflix and I'm like looking at my little dorm pantry and I'm like, I got some Ovaltine. I can make chocolate milk. Like, oh, I got some granola bars. I got some chocolate. Like, don't keep those foods on hand, first of all, if you struggle with it. But you know, this was like early. And so I would like have the code word peaches, and then he would call me and distract me. So that was really helpful for me. So maybe you could have a code word with like a friend or a roommate or a boyfriend or a mom or a dad. And maybe that will help you. So something that I did a lot when I had my eating disorder is I would like come home. Well, I say come home. I would like go to my dorm after class, and I would like set my backpack down. First thing I thought of and saw was the food in our little like pantry under the TV stand. And I would just be thinking about that food, and I was like, I could like eat anything right now and no one would know. I could like eat the peanut butter out of the jar and like nobody would know. So you know what I would do? I would get my hammock and I would go hammock across the street in like the woods. And that was so therapeutic for me, because I would just go, leave my room, be outside, get some sunshine, get some vitamin D, go swing my hammock, go for a walk, and I would literally not be thinking about food. And I would also take a book. Like I mentioned this book in the last video, but also a crazy good book. If you deal with binge eating, there's a book called Brain Over Binge. That book is so good. It's so good because it's like, oh, I actually can control this. Like, it's not gonna control me anymore. Because kind of that book breaks down like your like conscious thoughts, but then also like your animalistic brain, and kind of how to control the two of those. So that is a highly recommended book if you have an eating disorder or if you binge. Brain Over Binge is for you, because it really changed my perspective more than anything, and that is kind of what you need if you have an eating disorder, is perspective. So something else I did that was super helpful is if I was craving like the urge to binge and maybe I couldn't get in contact with Alan, or like I just felt kind of stuck, I would get out pen and paper and I would write down, why do I want to eat whatever? What do I want to eat? What could I do instead? And like seeing it on paper, it kind of got it out of my head, and I was like, oh, I'm craving candy corn. Why? Because I saw Amber eat candy corn. Do I feel like I need this candy corn to be healthy? No. So what can I do instead? Watch a movie. And I'm like, oh, well, okay, I'll just watch a movie. So it was like kind of breaking it down on paper was like a roadmap for me to maybe avoid certain foods, triggers, or whatever, avoid a binge situation. So writing it down really helped me. Okay, something else I did that I mentioned in the first video was I would visualize where I want to be. So if I was like really craving a specific food, or I just like wanted to go hard on food and I was just like wanting to binge, whether it was like planned or unplanned, in the midst of my eating or before I ate or whatever, I thought to myself, would my ideal self eat this? Like, would my best self, like my highest self, my dream Hailey, like would my dream girl eat this right now or eat this much? And I'd be like, probably not. So if I want to get to that point, I got to overcome this battle right now. And that helped me a lot too. I would be like, okay, I'm gonna throw the cookie away. Like, I don't need the third one, fourth, whatever. So that really helped me as well, and kind of expressing gratitude for the food I was eating, and just kind of being like, I don't want to overconsume. I don't want to be gluttonous. Okay, and for my final tip on how I stopped binging was I took the foods that I craved the most and I created healthy versions of it so that I didn't feel the need to binge it. For example, Snickers used to be, oh my gosh, my jam. I still love chocolate. I still buy chocolate a lot, but I will buy like vegan chocolate because I'm lactose intolerant, but I'll get the kind with like nuts in there or caramel. Like, I love candy and like sugary, creamy, caramel, fatty foods. Like, who doesn't want that in their mouth, right? So what I would do is I would like go to Pinterest or Google or YouTube, and I would watch videos or look at recipes for like healthy raw vegan desserts of like whatever I was craving. And I remember I made this like raw vegan Snickers, and it was like made with like dates and like nuts. It was fantastic. Like, my roommate loved it, my boyfriend loved it, and it was really, really good. And I felt kind of good after eating it. I was like, I just ate date caramel. Like, what? Like, so much better for you than like the crap filled ingredients in like your typical like candy bar from the store. So that's something I did. And also with like pizza, like I remember Alan and I used to make like oat crust pizza with like vegan cheese on top, and like if I ate it and I was like, oh my god, I just ate some vegan pizza. Like, I feel so good and healthy, but like it satisfied that pizza craving that I was having. So that's something else that was like huge for me, was kind of trying to replace the foods that I wanted to binge on and maybe staying away from the ones that I couldn't really like recreate. Like, candy corn used to be something I craved, but I couldn't like recreate candy corn. So I just literally was like, I gotta stop. Like, I gotta let you go. Yeah, so it's kind of a journey, and it's super individualized, and I hope this isn't like too vague for you guys, but this is what worked for me. This is what helped me. And honestly, trial and error. So like, there would be times where I would just like randomly binge on something like peppermints or something stupid, but it was just because I still had that like craving to want to eat a lot of food. And that's where the book Brain Over Binge really, really helped me. So I don't know, hopefully these tips helped you in any way, shape, or form. If it did, please comment below and let me know that it did help you or inspire you or motivate you, because I would love to connect. Also, if you're not already following me on Instagram, go ahead and do that, Happily Hailey Nicole, and I would love to connect with you. I genuinely love when people message me on Instagram and say, I found your eating disorder video, like whatever they have to say about it. That makes my day. So please do not hesitate to reach out. I promise I will respond, and I'm really excited to connect with you more personally. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, episode 2 of the eating disorder recovery series, and I'm looking forward to the next video. And thank you so much for watching this. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.